Yo, what's going on, everybody? Terrorizer here. Welcome back to the channel. I recently soloed Fatalis with every single weapon in Monster Hunter World, but not in the typical fashion that you're used to. Now, this time around, I used pre-Elatron and pre-Fatalis builds to really drive home the idea that you can beat Fatalis with any weapon with the same build, but for every single weapon. Tara, how does that really work, though, if all the weapons are different? Well, throughout this video, I'm going to be showing you a template build that is pretty much the endgame of the endgame builds that is actually still easily accessible if you have not beaten Elatron or Fatalis. It's a super amazing build that easily gets you the best defensive skill in Monster Hunter World, besides health boost, that is number one, and the best offensive skill in Monster Hunter World as well. So this is truly a one-off build that fits every single weapon, and I also proved that you can beat Fatalis with this build, with every single weapon, and these are the builds that I did it with. So if you are struggling with Fatalis, or you just want some endgame builds without getting the Elatron and Fatalis armor set up, using a build that we had before those monsters were even out in Monster Hunter World, this is the video for you. So throughout this video, I'm going to be going over the template build itself first. I'm going to be talking about all the skills that are there and why they're so important. And we're going to go through the nitty-gritty that pretty much doesn't change between every single weapon that we have lined out in the rest of the video. But after you see the template build and the armor pieces that you're going to need to collect, I have timestamps listed in this video so you can get to the weapon that you need to know how to build for specifically with the decorations that I've included in those builds. And speaking of, by the way, if you do not have some of the best decorations in Monster Hunter World, do not worry. I included mostly decorations that are pretty easily accessible to get. So even if you do not have some of the most cracked decorations, I made sure to use decorations that actually have pretty good drop rates. But without further ado, let's get on to the actual armor pieces of the build itself. So let's talk about the actual armor pieces that you're going to be wearing for this build. It's pretty much the same throughout every single build in this video. The only thing that really differs is some of the skills and decorations that we use just to help certain weapons out with certain strengths that they do have. But with that being said, let's take a look at the Greaves. We are using Brachydium Greaves Beta Plus, 2 points of weakness exploits, a level 4 and 2 level 1 decoration slots, super pog. Next up on the Tacet or the waist, we have the Golden Loon Coil Beta Plus, 3 points of Divine Blessing level 3. That's absolutely insane. That's pretty much maxed out besides the Divine Blessing Secret, which we're going to go over here shortly, but it has a level 4 and a level 2 decoration slot as well. Next up, we have the Brachydium Braces Beta Plus. We have Agitator level 2, 2 level 4 decoration slots, pretty good. Next, we have the Golden Loon Mail Beta Plus, 2 points of Divine Blessing, and a level 4 and a level 2 and a level 1 decoration slot. So that's 5 points of Divine Blessing so far, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have the Brachydium Helm Beta Plus, Weakness Exploit 1, not really a whole lot of skill points here, but we have a level 4, level 2 level 4 decoration slots, and a level 1 decoration slot as well. So throughout these pieces that we have 2 points of Weakness Exploit in the Greaves. Going up to the top, we have 1 more point of Weakness Exploit, so we have all of our Weakness Exploit in just 2 pieces of armor. On the chest, we have 2 points of Divine Blessing, and on the waist, we have 3 points of Divine Blessing. But here's the kicker, though. We have 2 armor set bonuses going on. So, Golden Rathian Essence 2 raises the maximum level of the Divine Blessing skill. So, Divine Blessing actually goes up to level 5, as you can see here. My head's kind of covering it a little bit. But you can read it here. While active, reduces damage taken by 60%. Skill becomes easier to activate as well. This is an absolute godsend of a defensive mechanic. Without the most important skill in the game, health boost, this is pretty much the best defensive skill that you can have in Monster Hunter. Yes, it trumps defense boost by a ton. But taking a look at the other armor skill set bonus that we have, we're only wearing 3 pieces of Raging Brachydios, but we only need the level 2 anyways. Raises the maximum level of the Agitator skill. And if you don't know, the counterpart to Divine Blessing in a way is Agitator. It doesn't work the same at all, but Agitator is pretty much the best offensive skill in Monster Hunter World for really good reason. First off, let's read the actual skill. Increases attack power and affinity when large monsters become enraged. And taking a look at level 7, while active, grants attack plus 28 and increases affinity by 20%. Now, Tara, attack plus 28 doesn't really sound very good, am I wrong? Unfortunately, viewer, if you were the one asking that in your mind, yes. But it's not really your fault. So Monster Hunter doesn't really explain this very well. It's not very good with menuing. Hopefully Monster Hunter Wilds will be different. But this attack plus 28 is actually more of a true raw damage value. It's the easiest way to think about it like that. It goes a lot more in depth, but for people who don't get into the nitty gritty with spreadsheets on attack damage values and all that, this is a ton of raw attack power. And I promise you, this is the best offensive skill in the game. So if you just want to take my advice, a person who's been playing for a long time, I'll say it again, Agitator is the best offensive skill in Monster Hunter World, and there's a specific reason, because when large monsters become enraged is when we get this extra 20% affinity and 28 raw damage. Now, the affinity is actually more important in certain ways. So whenever you're clutch clawing and flint-shotting monsters, otherwise known in the community as wall banging, monsters immediately become enraged right after that. If you're really good at flint-shotting monsters every single time you can when they are not enraged, that's how flint-shotting works or wall banging works. It's only going to work if a monster is not enraged. They immediately become enraged after that, though, so you can pretty much keep a monster when you're pretty good at Monster Hunter World, Iceborne specifically, enraged all the time. And that's where Agitator really comes into play. And that's why this is quite literally one of the best defensive skills in this game specifically. But as we talked about before, the Brachydios Will 2 actually gets us Agitator skill secret, getting us all the way up. Level 5 is normally the cap. And the Golden Rathian Essence as well gets us Divine Blessing secret to get all the way up to level 5 instead of level 3. An extremely meta build that I cooked up a long time ago before I was even a content creator when Monster Hunter World Iceborne actually first came out. Because this is a PRE-FATALIS build, this was an absolute comfy build that actually shredded with damage and protected you all the same against some of the toughest monsters in the game and some of the hardest hitting attacks. So now that we've talked about the actual armor pieces, the mantles, you can pretty much wear whatever you want, actually. You can kind of tool it up however you like. I like the Temporal Mantle and the Rocksteady Mantle, as do most endgame players in Monster Hunter. Now, we are using a Challenger Charm 5, actually, and this is actually what's getting us a lot of our points of Agitator, because we do get the skill secret with the Raging Brachy armor, but the Agitator is going to have to come through a charm or some decorations, stuff like that. Realistically, this is the only thing you're really going to need to grind for, maybe a little bit, but this is probably also the best charm in Monster Hunter World, as it goes all the way up to level 5, and Agitator points through decorations. The skill points are normally level 2 decoration slots, actually, so this is a huge bang for your buck charm that has 5 points of one skill on it, and it happens to be the best offensive skill in Monster Hunter World. Now, with the armor pieces in mind on the left and the skills on the right, as you can see, we have no decorations whatsoever. And on the left, as you can see, we have Agitator level 7, Divine Blessing level 5, and Weakness Exploit level 3. So if you don't know about Weakness Exploit, let's go over that real quick. Increases the affinity of attacks that exploit a monster weak spot. Attacks that hit weak spots have 30% increased affinity, pretty much the head on every monster, with an extra 20% on wounded parts. So if you Clutch Claw and tenderize the monster's head, this is pretty much a 50% affinity bonus whenever you're attacking the head. Now combine that with Agitator level 7, we get a whole 20% affinity, bringing us up to 70%. And if you have enough critical eye and you can get your weapon to about 30% affinity, it literally guarantees that you're hitting 100% critical hits on every single attack that you do to like a monster's head, though, specifically, or a weak spot. Depends on the monster, really. But these two skills work together so well just to make sure that you can really max out your attack damage value, as affinity is the fastest way to do it. And Divine Blessing level 5, we already went over that before, but pretty much the best offensive skill in Monster Hunter World. So let's take a look at this build with some actual decorations in it, though. This is the Greatsword build, for instance, and then I'm going to go through every single weapon and their build, because these skills pretty much don't change a whole ton from the first build that you're going to see here, except for a few skills that actually are to the benefit of the weapon playstyle specifically. Okay, now look at the decoration skill itself. First, let's talk about the regen on the right. We pretty much have a health regen augment on most of the weapons that you're actually going to see here. Health regen, if you do not know, you pretty much regenerate health on all the attacks that you do with every single weapon. The ranged weapons actually kind of have a debuff to them. They just do not heal you a lot with health regen augment. And if I remember correctly, we probably might have a different augment then. I'm not sure, actually. We're going to have to take a look and find out. But take a look at the skills right here. This is the skill page fully maxed out. So a lot lot different, as you can see. We have all the decorations on the left. If you do need to know what those are, please feel free to pause the video. We do have Critical Eye level 6. Now, depending on the weapon that you're using, as we talked about before with the Agitator secret skill, getting all the way up to level 7, 20% affinity, and the Weakness Exploit, getting us a whole 50% affinity on a tenderized spot. That is also a weak spot for the monster. That gets us 70% affinity, as we talked about before, where you need a 30% affinity on our weapon typically, without those extra bonuses to get that 100%. So that's why we do have Critical Eye level 6 on the Greatsword specifically. Let's talk about some of the crucial skills that are pretty much not going to change throughout the entire video. The first number 1 skill is Health Boost. This is the best defensive skill in Monster Hunter World. I've said that a million times if you've watched a lot of my previous videos, and it's for good reason. I will never stop advocating for a health boost. It quite literally gets you, like 1.5 times your normal health bar. That is so much in terms of defensive value, and it will always trump stuff like defense boost. The second best skill, of course, is Divine Blessing for defensive capabilities, but we already went over that before. Now, another skill that you're actually going to see in a lot of these builds is Heat Guard. What, Tara? Heat Guard? Yes, you heard me right. Now, Heat Guard says nullifies damage from heat, and at level 1, nullifies heat damage. And what does that really mean exactly? Well, this basically acts as a cool drink, but even better than a cool drink, actually. So in fights against Fatalis specifically, which is what I was using a lot of these builds for, Heat Guard actually nullifies a lot of the AoE fire damage that Fatalis has in phase 3 of the Fatalis fight. Now, if you're not familiar with the Fatalis fight because you are not there yet, you might be because you are watching this video specifically, actually. There's a lot of fire damage on the ground that absolutely melts your character if you stand in it for prolonged amounts of time, and Heat Guard literally nullifies it. Yes, you heard me right. So Heat Guard doesn't really look like a good skill, really. Honestly, we're actually just getting it from a level 2 decoration right here, the Cooling Jewel. So it only takes 1 decoration slot, and it's a level 2 jewel, actually. But if you think about it in really simple terms, if like you're not really nitty-gritty with the details, let me just tell you this. Heat Guard, this 1 skill point from 1 decoration, nullifies fire AoE damage from Fatalis, and it also nullifies fire damage and stuff like that, like when you're in the Elder's Recess. It also has help with like Teostra and Lunastra. So extremely good decoration that is actually super underrated, honestly. And finally, the last skill that we're going to talk about that is important throughout every single build in the video, Flinch Free, level 1. Prevents knockbacks and other reactions to small damage. So this is actually more of a multiplayer decoration and skill. If you do not know, this is actually going to help you to not get flinched by other teammates a ton. It only costs level 1 to be able to do that. So if you're tired of your teammates flinching you with like longsword specifically or something like that, or you keep getting hit when you're a hammer user and you're just trying to get your big bang combo going or something like that, this will literally prevent those knockbacks that you do get from teammates. And so you might hate your teammates for doing that, but you can't really control the weapon they're playing. You can only control what you do. So this skill is in here in every single build as well. If you're a solo player, you actually get a free decoration slot if you're not using this skill. But all these builds are multiplayer and solo focused, so it doesn't matter if you're playing in a group setting, doesn't matter if you're playing solo. Flinch Free is a really, really big help. In solo, you quite literally don't need this skill, but I have it just for ease of access because I like to play multiplayer a lot in the streams and the live lobbies that we do. And finally, the last crucial skill that we are using is actually Fortify. It temporarily increases your attack and defense every time you faint up to 2 times. So if you're dying a lot on typical monsters or the Fatalis fight specifically, increases attack by 10% and defense by 50% with each use. Now this doesn't really tell you, but it says temporarily increases your attack and defense. It pretty much just like lasts until you die again or you faint again. So you can get a total of 20% attack and 30% defense increase if you faint up to 2 times, which will really, really help you with your hunt, honestly. And while you're not banking on dying or fainting in a quest, I'll tell you what, when it does happen, because it happens, guys, it happens to me all the time, I faint. The running joke is, oh, a tactical Fortify. I've just fainted because I wanted to get the extra attack and defense buff. But no, really, it's true because you're not expecting to die, right? But when you die and you don't have Fortify, you're like, oh, did I put Fortify in this build? Oh, no, I did it. Well, That sucks. So Fortify, really good stuff, honestly. I highly recommend this skill in literally any build that you're making, unless you're like a speedrunner expert at Monster Hunter World. And if you are a speedrunner like expert at Monster Hunter World, I don't even know why you're watching this video, honestly, but what's up? So that's basically all the skills that we did need to go over for every single build in this video that pretty much aren't going to change throughout these builds. Now we're going to go through this template build for every single weapon in the game. We're not going to spend too much time on them. I'm mostly going to show you what's most important, which is the decorations screen, of course, which you'll be able to pause the YouTube video to take a look at. And then shortly after that, in every single weapon and build, I'm going to go over some of the crucial skills that are actually swapped out on some weapons and builds specifically to better suit that weapon. But without further ado, we're already on the Greatsword page, of course. So starting off with the Greatsword, pause the YouTube video, like I said before, if you do need to take a look at the decorations. Now here's the skills page, of course, as well. So the first skill on Greatsword is Focus, increases the fill rate for weapons with gauges and the charge rate for weapons with charge attacks. Level 3 gets us increased gauge fill rate by 20% and reduced charge times by 15%. So Greatsword, taking advantage of the latter, it literally speeds up a lot of the charge swings that you're doing with Greatsword. This is pretty self-explanatory. It just literally speeds up the attacks that you're doing. Sometimes you will miss attacks if you do not have focus, so this little extra bit helps. 15% doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does add up over time when you're getting all these charge swings off. Next, we have Tool Specialist. It's not specifically Greatsword that actually makes good use of this, actually, but Tool Specialist reduces the recharge time for specialized tools. Level 3 gets us shortens time until reuse by 30%. So it literally just puts an extra 30% cooldown reduction on your mantles, Temporal Mantle, Rocksteady Mantle, for instance. And since you are standing there with Greatsword, charging up swings, if you're not too good with Greatsword yet, and you might take a hit or two when you're standing there for a prolonged amount of time. So having the Temporal Mantle and the Rocksteady Mantle to help reduce damage or literally just nullify the damage that you take with Temporal really helps the Greatsword to actually get those attacks in. So Tool Specialist speeding up the recharge time on those mantles, pretty good stuff. Next, we have Airborne, increases the damage caused by jumping attacks by a whole 30%, actually. So if you're making use of a ledge with Greatsword's aerial charge swing attack, this can really add up a ton of damage. So Airborne, we're only using one decoration for this right here, the Flight Jewel level 2, and it gets us 1 whole point of Airborne. Taking a look at Longsword next. Here's the decorations page. We are using a health regen augment on the weapon. Otherwise, taking a look at the skills, pretty much the same stuff as we talked about before. We have Critical Eye level 6 to get us the 30% affinity that we are using. But important skills with the Longsword specifically, Power Prolonger level 3. Allows longswords, dual blades, insect glaives, switch axes, and charge blades to stay powered up longer. So this one's pretty self-explanatory as well if you are a longsword player. It literally buffs the amount of time that you are in the white, yellow, and the red spirit gauge buff that you obtain with the longsword. So Power Prolonger level 3, a very nice quality of life skill. I really like Power Prolonger. It's not quite necessary on longsword, but that's only if you are like a really good player and you're really good at like getting your red buff really fast. Now, funny enough, that's actually the only skill besides Clutch Claw Boost that we're utilizing on longsword for the most part. Clutch Claw Boost helps the longsword because it is a light tenderizing weapon. So it takes 2 Clutch Claw attacks to normally get a monster part tenderized, but with the Clutch Claw Boost right here, it pretty much tenderizes instantly and you get a pod because this is a light tenderizing weapon. Light tenderizing weapons typically only drop a pod. Heavy tenderizing weapons such as like Greatsword tenderize immediately but don't drop a pod. So this actually makes it pretty much even across the board when you have Clutch Claw Boost equipped. So we have it on the longsword specifically because we don't want to have to do 2 tenderize attacks on a monster to try to get the tenderize for our weakness exploit and all that. So it's mostly useful on the light tenderizing weapons like I said before. Longsword is one of them. Take a look at Sword and Shield, my main weapon. Now this build's actually a little bit different. We have the typical Agitator, Critical Eye, Divine Blessing, Health Boost, all that stuff. But we are actually using Part Breaker level 2. Part Breaker makes it easier to break or sever parts of large monsters. Level 2, part damage plus 20%. There's no reason why we have level 2 specifically. It's just actually to help out with the Sword and Shield because when we are doing the Perfect Rush combo, the Perfect Rush combo with the Sword and Shield actually has a terrible part break multiplier. I'm talking it's like a quarter or up to half of the typical part break damage that you are doing with Sword and Shield. It's something really nitty gritty that you're not going to know unless you just kind of know. Now, the end of the Perfect Rush combo has a ton of part break damage on it with the sword pull-out attack, but it's all the stuff before that that is really bad. So part breaker really helps Sword and Shield specifically. An extra 20% will help offset that, even if it's just by a little bit, because Sword and Shield, honestly, we don't actually need a whole lot of skills on Sword and Shield. The weapon pretty much works without having to use focus or power prolong or anything. It doesn't have a special gauge or anything. It always just suits any situation. So part breaker is something extra that I have here. Feel free to slot in whatever you want instead. But as it's in the name, another crucial skill, Sword and Shield, we're utilizing guard up, allows you to guard against ordinarily unblockable attacks. So guard up makes it so that we can literally block any single attack in Monster Hunter, besides like supernovas and stuff from particular monsters. Otherwise, we have Clutch Claw Boost, as we've gone over before in the video. The Clutch Claw makes it so that you only have to do one Clutch Claw attack with a Sword and Shield to tenderize instantly, so a really, really good pick. Next up, we have Dual Blades, one of my favorite weapons. Probably a weapon that I'm considering maining for Monster Hunter Wilds, actually, if you didn't know. Starting off with this, though, we have Health Regen Augment 1. Now, here's where the build also changes a bit as well. So first, actually, we need to take a look at one piece of armor that is different, but shouldn't be too hard to get. We are actually using the Tentacle Greaves Beta Plus. The Tentacle Greaves Beta Plus gets us 2 points of Stamina Surge, a level 4 and a level 2 decoration slot. Dual Blades basically uses a lot of stamina, and since we only need 2 pieces of Raging Brachy instead of the 3-piece that we're doing to get the armor skill set bonus, we have this slotted in because Dual Blades uses a lot of stamina, so it really does help out. So that is actually something that is different, compared to all the other weapons in the game. But we are using a Health Regen Augment. Here's the skills page itself, decorations, of course. Let's take a look at actually what makes the Dual Blades work pretty well, which is a bunch of stamina skills, basically. So Constitution level 3 reduces fixed stamina depletion by 30%, reduces stamina depletion when performing stamina draining moves such as evading and etc. We do also have Part Breaker level 2, similar to the Sword and Shield. This is just to help the Dual Blades get some extra part damage in here and there, because the Dual Blades does do a flurry of attacks, and not all the attacks are hitting in the right spot when you want them to. This is a skill that can be swapped out, honestly. Next, we have Stamina Surge level 2 as well. Speeds up stamina recovery by a 20%. So this is basically when your stamina is low, it's going to recharge 20% faster, right? This is actually a greatly helpful skill on Dual Blades and other weapons like the bow and stuff like that, actually. Other than that, we have the typical Clutch Claw Boost, is another light tenderizing weapon. So Clutch Claw Boost makes it so that we only have to a Clutch Claw attack once on a monster to tenderize immediately. So that's pretty much it for Dual Blades as well. Let's get on to our next one with the hammer, the Ham Bam. Ham Bam, thank you, ma'am. What? Taking a look at the actual decorations and the skills. If you watch the Greatsword part of this video, you will be familiar with Focus, but let's go over it real quick again. Increases the fill rate for weapons with gauges and the charge rate for weapons with charge attacks. Level 3 increases the gauge fill rate by 20% and reduces charge times by 15%. So that one applies to the hammer specifically as well. We are charging up with the hammer a lot, moving around stuff. This just helps us charge faster to get into our attacks faster. So pretty self-explanatory. Now what's nice about the hammer actually is we don't really need any skills other than focus. Focus isn't even actually that crucial on the hammer, but I enjoy it specifically. The reason why it's not crucial is because unlike Greatsword, you can actually charge while you're running around with the hammer, and so you can get into the position how you need to, which also means that you can actually take your time to charge and you can move around and evade monsters' attacks that way. But I like getting into the attacks a little bit quicker myself, honestly. Hammer is also a heavy tenderizing weapon, so it tenderizes immediately, so that means no Clutch Claw Boost. Next, let's get into the Hunting Horn. One of my favorite weapons in Monster Hunter. Oh, I forgot I'm using some of my Inner Circle's like super cool armor set looking stuff. So Hunting Horn is pretty much the same across the board as well. But for the decorations, we are actually using a Sonorous Jewel level 4 for Horn Maestro level 2. Let's go over that, one of the more important skills. Horn Maestro level 2. Quite literally only important on Hunting Horn. Level 2 greatly increases the effect duration. So Hunting Horn melodies, this is literally the name of the game with the Hunting Horn. If you are unfamiliar, if you're trying to get into Hunting Horn, you can take a look at my Hunting Horn guide video. Otherwise, if you're pretty much familiar with Hunting Horn already, this is pretty much a no-brainer skill on the Hunting Horn and is pretty much mandatory in any single Hunting Horn build that I would have in Monster Hunter ever, honestly. So do not sleep on this skill. Please do not sleep on it. This is literally the best skill that you can have on Hunting Horn, honestly. Otherwise, there's actually not a whole lot of useful skills. We could talk about tool specialists again. If you're using something like the Rocksteady Mantle, the tool specialist could be useful in a situation where you're trying to get your hunting horn buffs off and a monster is in the arena, because you don't flinch when you have the Rocksteady Mantle on. Perhaps you could take a hit while you're getting your melody out because you won't flinch. So maybe the tool specialist helps there with the recharge time of the Rocksteady. Otherwise, the hunting horn is not a light tenderizing weapon, is a heavy tenderizing weapon, so it tenderizes all the time without clutch claw boost. Next, let's get on to Lance. Here's the decorations, of course, listed on the left part of the screen, as you can see here. Let's go through some of the important skills. We have guard level 5, reduces knockbacks and stamina depletion when guarding. And all the way up at level 5, massively decreases the impact of attacks and reduces the stamina depletion that you actually take from said attacks by 50%. So this is a no-brainer skill for the Lance as well. The Lance has literally the best shielding capabilities in the game. It's going to remain the same in Monster Hunter Wilds as well. Pretty much literally tried, true, and tested in the beta for Monster Hunter Wilds. With that though, we need the guard up skill level 1. If you do not see on the left here, I have a shield jewel right here. 1 point gets you guard up, allows you to guard against ordinarily unblockable attacks. Pretty self-explanatory as well. Otherwise, that's pretty much actually it for Lance. Lance is also a heavy tenderizing weapon as well, so no clutch claw boost again. Gunlance, one of my favorite weapons as well. Now with the Gunlance, we have Evade Extender level 3, which greatly extends evasion distance. We also have that paired with Evade Window level 2. Evade window level 2 slightly increases the invulnerability window when you are evading. So having your distance be increased with the Gunlance, as well as having some extra iframes, which is basically what evade window does. The Gunlance doesn't look like it, but it's actually kind of a mobility monster when you have these skills equipped specifically. And since the Gunlance doesn't actually have any counter abilities in Monster Hunter World, unlike Monster Hunter Wilds and stuff like that, Gunlance's shielding capability is actually really good, but its evading is actually somehow better. But we're not always going to be able to evade attacks specifically all the time, so we also do have guard up as well, because it is a shielding weapon. Allows us to guard against ordinarily unblockable attacks. Pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes it's easier to guard in a situation if you're not confident in your evading ability, or if you think you can take the hit, just block. Okay, so I made a tiny mistake. It's supposed to be Evade Extender 2, as I forgot to slot in Clutch Claw Boost originally. I am sorry to have deceived you for that short amount of time. The video will now continue. Next, let's go on to the Switch Axe. So Switch Axe pretty much is actually interchangeable with Longsword very easily, actually. So pretty much the same thing as Longsword. Power Prolonger allows Switch Axes to stay powered up longer. Level 3 greatly increases the duration the weapon is powered up, which is really, really helpful with sword mode. Now, getting into some more Switch Axe stuff, if you're a ZSD spammer, Zero Sum Discharge, ZSD is some of the best damage that Switch Axe can easily do in Monster Hunter World, pretty reliably if you're pretty good at it and knowing when to call it quits on the ZSD instead of like over spamming. But Tool Specialist really does help if we're using the Temporal Mantle and the Rocksteady Mantle, which reduce the damage that we're taking when we are attached to the monster and stuff with the ZSD. Shortens the time until reused by 30%, so a really good cooldown reduction to our mantles, which really helps with that play style if you're doing that specifically. Otherwise, earplugs level 1. Now, this is something that I've gone over in some other weapon videos and build videos of mine, but earplugs level 1 has a specific use on Switch Axe specifically that Monster Hunter literally just doesn't tell you about. You actually get earplugs level 4 naturally when you're doing ZSD on a monster. And so having 1 point of earplugs level 1 will get you all the way up to level 5 down here, which nullifies weak and strong monster roars, which basically means that you get to stay on the monster no matter what when you're ZSDing if a monster roars. Because of the level 4 that's inherent in the ZSD, the game doesn't tell you, I know. Having the level 1 earplugs makes you pretty much impervious to those roars. Otherwise, Switch Axe is a heavy tenderizing weapon, so no Clutch Claw boost. Going into Charge Blade. Oh, dang, this is kind of a cool loadout as well. So here's the decorations for Charge Blade and all the skills, of course. Charge Blade actually isn't a whole ton different from a lot of weapons, but we're going to take a look again, of course. We have Tool Specialist level 3, reduces recharge time for specialized tools. We also have Evade Window and Extender level 2 of each. Really good stuff. I'm a huge fan of an Evade Window Extender Charge Blade playstyle. I'm actually going to be making a build video separate for that in the future, so please stay tuned for that. It's one of the easiest ways to play Charge Blade, I swear, man. It's so easy, but also really fun, also really damaging. One of the more important skills on Charge Blade, however, is Capacity Boost. Increases the Gunlance's shell capacity and Charge Blade's vial capacity. So loading capacity +1 makes it so that you have 6 vials instead of 5. Really, really good stuff on the Charge Blade. Pretty much crucial on the Charge Blade, honestly. And Charge Blade is a heavy tenderizing weapon, so no Clutch Claw boost this time around. Now, Insect Glaive. So for the Insect Glaive, you can pretty much use any Kinsect that you want. Otherwise, for skills similar to Longsword and Switch Axe, we have Power Prolonger. Allows Insect Glaives to stay powered up longer. Tool Specialist I also find useful on the Insect Glaive because if you are staying in the air for a prolonged amount of time, Rocksteady Mantle and Temporal Mantle can help us so that you don't take a huge hit and you can kind of just spam aerial attacks. It's not really the best damage, but Tool Specialist really does help with that kind of stuff. Otherwise, not a whole ton different with the Insect Glaive. It is a light tenderizing weapon, however, though, so we are using Clutch Claw boost this time. Taking a look at Light Bowgun. So Light Bowgun and the Bowguns and the range weapons is actually where these builds start differing quite a bit. So first, let's go over the weapon that we're actually using. We are using the Blizzard Gust, actually. We're not using a Raging Bracky weapon this time around. So Blizzard Gust, we have up to 4 custom mods on this bad boy. It is a rarity 11 weapon, of course. So the Blizzard Gust is not really actually useful in a lot of areas like status effects. It literally quite only has 1 elemental ammo that you can use as well, which is freeze ammo, but this thing is capable of spread level 3 ammo. Yes, you heard me right. This is a spread light bowgun build. Very good stuff. I'm also going to be making a video for the spread light bowgun build really shortly here, so please stay tuned for that. So here's the decorations page. Let's go over the important skills that we are using. We are using free element ammo up. If you are unaware, unlocks your weapon's hidden element for melee weapons anyways. Otherwise, also increases bowgun loading capacity. So level 3 expands the clip size for most ammo. This is an extremely important skill to have on pretty much any bowgun build, honestly. So I highly recommend that you find a way to get free element ammo up into your bowgun builds. Otherwise, actually, I thought it was a bit different, but that's about it. We do have Clutch Claw boost, of course. Light Bowgun is a light tenderizing weapon. So on to the next weapon, which is Heavy Bowgun. Now switching on to the Heavy Bowgun. We're not using a Raging Bracky weapon this time around. Oh my god, I'm going to get all the gooners with this outfit. Yeah, so we are actually using custom mods of Recoil Suppressor and 4 Close Range Up just for a ton of damage. Now, you can actually slot in some guard up skills with this one. It depends on if you like guarding, but without the flexibility of like Fatalis armor and having a bunch of skill slots, I actually prefer to be more evasive with my bowgun playstyle. So you're going to see why that is coming into effect here shortly. So Loyal Thunder really makes use of spread ammo specifically. Loyal Thunder is quite literally one of the best spread heavy bowguns if you are not using one of the super end game spread heavy bowguns. This is like PRE-FATALIS stuff, like I said, of course. So this used to be a pretty meta heavy bowgun, and it still works to this day. Going into the skills page. As we went over before with the light bowgun, we are using, let's see, free element ammo up here, of course. If you skip to this part of the video, draws out 100% of hidden element for melee weapons, and expands clip size for most ammo. Otherwise, moving on to some other skills, we have Evade a Window and Extender as well. Window gives us some more iframes at level 2, slightly increases the invulnerability window. And level 2, Evade Extender, extends evasion distance. This actually makes it so that you travel really far with the heavy bowgun, and I highly recommend an Evade heavy bowgun play style as you go really far, and you literally get out of any danger that you could actually succumb to really fast because of the Evade Extender, because heavy bowgun's evade is like goes really far for some reason, honestly. Otherwise, heavy bowgun is a heavy tenderizing weapon, so no Clutch Claw boost this time around. Now for our final build, the bow. So we're actually using a Raging Bracky bow real quick. Actually, I want to show you the Light Break bow. Has access to close range, power coating, and has a bonus to blast. Otherwise, taking a look at the decorations, as I've said before in a lot of the other builds, feel free to pause the video and take a look. There's not really a whole lot that's really important except for Constitution. Reduces fixed stamina depletion by 20%. When you're performing stamina draining moves such as evading, you're doing a lot of charging evades with the bow, so this really helps with the bow stamina usage. Bow eats up a ton of stamina, so I highly recommend some stamina skills. Otherwise, we do have a point of evade window and extender. Literally get some more iframes when we are doing those charging side steps, and we go a little bit further with the evade extender as well. Otherwise, the most important skill on the bow is actually Bow Charge Plus. Increases the max bow charge level by 1. So this is pretty much a no-brainer skill. You should have this on every single bow build. And for our final weapon, it is a light tenderizing weapon, so we do have the Clutch Claw boost. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The best build for every single weapon in Monster Hunter World. That is a pre-Electron and pre-Fatalis build, actually. This is actually a build that I used a long time ago before I was even a content creator, back in Monster Hunter World's heyday, before Electron and Fatalis were out. Truth be told, I want to think of myself as one of the founding creators of this build that easily combines Raging Bracky and Golden Rathian for the best defense and the best offense. It is a little bit difficult to remember, but back then, pretty much everybody was probably using this build in hindsight. So I don't really know if I created anything crazy myself. But the truth is I completely advocate for this armor. Even still, you'll hear me in my live streams talk about it all the time. The Golden Rathian, the Raging Bracky armor combining to get you all your Divine Blessing in some of the armor pieces itself and to get you started with the Agitator and the Agitator Secret. It's just an absolute godsend of an armor set, and the defense is capable of hitting the eye ends of the defense of the maximum of Monster Hunter World. That's all I've got for today's build video, guys and gals. I really hope you enjoyed this one, as I feel like this build is really easily transferable to any single weapon in the game, no matter what weapon you play. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like. And if you enjoyed it even further, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're on our way to a goal of 30,000 subscribers before the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, and every single little bit helps. And if you aren't aware, I actually stream Monster Hunter World on a weekly basis every Thursday through Sunday here on YouTube and on Twitch, as I multi-stream to both platforms. But now that we're at the end of the video, what weapon do you main in Monster Hunter World? And what weapon are you most excited to play in Monster Hunter Wilds? Please let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, that is it for today, guys and gals. I really hope you had a good one. I'm signing off. This has been Terrorizing. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace. 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 All right, see you guys later.